So, right, Marcus Sweeney. Now, I'm kind of reluctant. I was a bit reluctant, but then I just said, right, go for it, because you did say a fantastic story has just dropped into the news basket. Marcus Sweeney, for anyone who doesn't remember, had a peculiar little interest.
Well, interest or disinterest or whatever. You became the focus of his social media accounts.
Yeah. Is he still on social media?
He's still on social media, yeah.
What does he do?
He still does videos. He sent me a message actually at one stage. He said,
saying what?
You're not too bad.
Oh.
That was...
I don't know why he turned against me so badly.
No, well, because you were... Yeah, well, look...
It was all around what we're going to speak about, of course, because
it was.
Marcus Sweeney hit the headlines during a Criminal Assets Bureau case. And, of course, he was somebody that was in the headlines for very different reasons many moons ago, when he was a sort of a socialite around town. He was a restaurant owner. He dated Katie French. Very famously, they had a big bust up during a photo shoot, and the engagement rings were demanded back, and there was all sorts of nastiness between the two of them. But generally, he was a kind of a guy about town who was permanently sort of tanned.
Well, he was a socialite, I suppose, is how he's described. Now, he was a businessman. He would have been friends with Jim Mansfield Jr., people like that. Would have appeared...
Convicted criminal, Jim Mansfield Jr.
Jim Mansfield Jr., yeah. But again, he was part of a certain set at a certain time in Ireland, with a lot of conspicuous wealth going on.
And was he only in that set? Because I sort of seem to remember him very much being on the pages of the Sunday Independent in a kind of a Lily's Bordello crew.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And he's spoken about that.
Reynards and all that.
Yeah, yeah. So you weren't there yourself, obviously, no?
Well, I might have been, but I wasn't mingling with Sweeney
no.
and his likes. But but no, just to distinguish him, because of course, you know, he was also friendly out in the Mansfield circles.
Yeah.
But he had a particular thing about Jim Mansfield Sr. I think he sort of saw him almost like a father figure to him, didn't he?
He did, and I think he came from relatively humble background, Marcus Sweeney, and was taken on board by Mansfield Senior and sort of mentored into business.
Because he was a fitness instructor that was working there in City West, and he started hanging around at the Sons, certainly Jim Jr. And he was living there. I think he had an apartment out there.
Yeah.
And
he kind of got taken
in. Did he introduced Katie French to them, really?
He introduced Katie French and Marcus Sweeney then. He's spoken himself about getting a lot of money off banks and investing it in restaurants, and how when it all went wrong, it really went wrong.
Yeah.
He has said the banks were throwing money at him. He was certainly spending that money, flash cars, you know, unhealthy lifestyle, let's put it that way, to say the least. And then after Katie French's death, you know, he became the focus of a lot of media attention, which he feels very hard done by. For various reasons, you know, he obviously gave...
Remind me why he became the focus, because the bust-up with the engagement and all.
He, after Katie French died, of course, very tragically.
Oh, he gave a statement, that's right, yeah.
He gave a statement about what he knew about the death, because it sparked a major investigation, and people can look back on it and say, you know, it was because of that high-profile nature that there was an investigation into where the cocaine that she took had come from. As part of that, a lot of people in her circle were interviewed, and that included Marcus Sweeney.
Mm-hmm. He spoke about, I mean, I think in his statement he wasn't overly kind to Katie French. He spoke about her having this insatiable appetite for cocaine, which he was sort of separating himself from a little bit while they had taken cocaine together. He could never keep up with her.
Yeah, which, look, he may say that's the truth of the matter, and he told the truth. But either way, he then the businesses collapsed as part of, you know, like a lot of people's businesses went bankrupt at that time, as the Celtic Tiger came to a shuddering stop, and banks looked for the money back that they'd invested. And Marcus Sweeney kind of went quiet then. I think he got back into the fitness business, did one or two interviews saying he'd put all that behind him, and you know, he was unfairly tarnished with things that had nothing to do with him. I think at some point he went over to Dubai, didn't he, to work as a fitness instructor?
Yes, he said that himself, and he went over there and he set up as, wasn't he flying helicopters or planes or something over there?
I'm not sure, but anyway, either way, he disappeared from view ultimately before reappearing in the Sunday World, because not for no reason. The reason he reappeared was that a property he was living in was raided by the Criminal Assets Bureau. What had happened was Marcus Sweeney had been spotted meeting with a Turkish mafia guy, really is the most basic way to say it. He had met him.
Mm-hmm.
The guards had then followed this. He was a guy from the UK, but had links with what's described as a Turkish mafia. They'd followed him back to a rented property and seized €1 million worth of heroin. Marcus Sweeney had obviously been spotted with him. There was further investigations and a raid occurred at the property he had stayed in. I think at that time a car and a couple of Rolexes were seized.
That's right. Yes, that's right. That is right. Now you're bringing me back.
Well,
I do remember going up and knocking that door.
Yeah.
But I think that was his father's house at the time, from memory.
Yeah. I think he was in an annex at the back.
He might have been in an annex at the back.
Obviously, the investigation had nothing to do with his family.
No, he was living in an annex at the back, and there was a car, definitely a Range Rover or something, seized, but it was quite old. I'm nearly sure the Rolex watches were fake and were handed back to him. But the interesting part of it all really was that as the Criminal Assets Bureau, delved into this, they found links between Marcus Sweeney, this Turkish gang who were proper, serious criminals, a big Turkish mafia outfit, actually.
Yeah.
And they found links between Marcus Sweeney and a particular member of the criminal gang we call the Family.
Yeah.
I mean, these were significantly, this wasn't, somebody doing a little bit of a thing on the side. These were proper organised criminals. It was quite astounding that Marcus Sweeney could be in any way, shape or form caught up in that, or why he was. And of course, as the Criminal Assets Bureau untangled everything, they discovered a parcel of land.
Yeah, that had been owned by a company that Marcus Sweeney was associated with. It was a 10-acre site that had been bought, and ultimately sort of complicated parts of it. But basically, the land was seized, and declared the proceeds of crime, and that the court heard. In Marcus Sweeney actually didn't appear at the original court hearing to
and it was against
this.
It was his wealth management firm, wasn't it?
It was his wealth management firm, but Judge Alexander Owens at the time said Cab had a very compelling case in which Marcus Sweeney was up to his oxters with organised crime. That was the evidence was given in court that Marcus had been served with a guarded gym form, and that this is something he particularly disputes for some reason, but that was the evidence given one way or another.
And just to say, the firm is called EWM Property Holdings.
Yes. So all of that occurred. Marcus Sweeney didn't contest the original case when it came to the final judgment. The field was seized and sold off. However, Marcus Sweeney has reappeared today. Now, I don't know if it was in part of, sometimes these cases are completed, but there's, further little bits to sort out, little bits of maybe.
You don't know whether it was listed or not, you mean?
I don't know whether it was listed or not, or what was the context.
They can sort of trundle on in the proceeds of crime legislation is a little bit complex, and they move sort of the properties. Say, let's take this is a field that was bought, was it for 105,000 or something, in a place called Waynestown, is it? In
Waynestown,
Dunboyne, that you and I visited it, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, say you take that field, it goes from one section to the next, until eventually it sort of goes into the property of the state. But there could be little bits of...
There's loads of bureaucracy, loads of little bits of things to tie up and documents to be exchanged.
But it ultimately has to be given to a receiver representing the bureau and all this sort of stuff. So that parcel of land is probably still going through a sale process or something like that. So it could have been listed. Or he could have just shown up at the cab.
Well, we don't know exactly what.
But he certainly wasn't on the list himself, was he?
Well, I don't know. But he appeared.
Well, he wasn't, because he was told to get the hell out.
Well, so what our colleague Eamon Dillon was there, and he said, Judge Owens said today that it wasn't clear what Marcus Sweeney wanted from the court, and he told him to please go after he failed to make a coherent argument. The judge said he could not make hide nor hair of what Sweeney wanted to achieve with the
So he was making a nuisance of himself.
He did later on. He said Marcus Sweeney, he basically told him that the case was completed, and, he said there was liberty to re-enter the case, but that only related to any issue to facilitate the settlement agreement. So there might have been a bit of, loose ends to be tied up. But as far as he was concerned, the case was completed.
Yes.
And he, Marcus Sweeney obviously came with these documents, and the judge said they were not evidence about anything, and he was none the wiser as to Sweeney's aims.
Right.
And he said the case could not be relitigated. So it isn't in a position to be appealed. And Marcus Sweeney then attempted to put further arguments to the judge and told the judge he had a right to speak. And Judge Alexander Owens, who's quite direct, let's put it that way, explained that he didn't have such a right, and he didn't have the right to ramble on. Now, then, this is a quote, I'm now going to ask the duty guard to remove you. You are making a nuisance of yourself, the judge told him. So he said as well, this isn't a soapbox for litigants to get up and say what they want. And he told Marcus Sweeney to go, who then, in fairness, got up and left. So if you look at his TikToks, which I know you don't do any,
I love TikTok.
No, but
he's
you don't
not on my...
Well, he's there, and he has at times...
He's not a Jack Russell dog, you see. Most of my TikToks are Jack Russell dogs.
Yeah. No, he's not a Jack Russell dog, we can confirm. No, but what he has spoken about this case, and he's brought up kind of novel legal arguments, some of which would be...
Now, we have had a look at those, you and I, because, yes, in the aftermath of the case being sort of lost, essentially, because he'd never challenged it, he sort of was calling out Judge Alexander Owens, and he was calling him oxters. Do you remember that?
He was calling him oxters. And he was making arguments. There's a lot of arguments that I suppose lay litigants can take a hold of. We won't get into them because, for a start, I don't even remember exactly what they were. But there are these arguments that he was making on TikTok if people really want to go and visit it. So he obviously attempted to bring some of them into court on this occasion. But the courts are very well established in the Criminal Assets Bureau cases. A judgment has been made.
Remember he was trying to have a party?
He may have had a party. I don't
He was organising a party for all his TikTok followers, was it?
Yeah, he was,
or his Instagram followers, and he had arranged to, and then it just didn't seem to happen.
Yeah, well.
What else was he doing?
Mainly talking about you, I suppose, which may begin again.
And it, of course, was because he had actually, what happened was, from memory, our colleague Niamh Horan in the Sunday Independent had done an interview with him.
Yeah.
And we actually brought Niamh on to the podcast because she'd gone met him and done this big interview. It was in the aftermath of the cab, and he had things to say about the court.
I mean,
he had
things to say about the case, that he didn't know who he was dealing with. That he wasn't involved in organised crime. This is just an investment. He didn't know the names of the people involved. They wouldn't mean anything to him. He didn't move in those circles. Various other explanations.
And he did all that in the interview, and we brought Niamh Horan on to tell our listeners about that interview and about what he had to say. And it seemed okay then. He seemed to get very excited that he was next on Crime World. He thought he was going to be in the Jerry Hutch hot seat.
Yeah.
And that never happened because he just turned for no apparent reason.
Well, he may have had his reasons,
but he never made them perfectly clear, did he?
No. Well, look, I mean, it certainly was... Well, look, maybe...
There's lots of comments about living rent-free in his head and the likes of that.
There was.
But look, I mean, who didn't have to have a giggle at that social media stuff he went on with after?
Yeah.
Sitting out on the balcony of the apartment block and pontificating.
Yeah. Well, look, he made his mark, I suppose.
He did. And did he? Because I wonder, okay, I obviously never hit follow, but many did.
And he did, and look, there were certainly high viewerships. I mean, TikTok's a funny phenomenon. You can really clock up a lot of views.
Is he achieving anything on it? Is he?
Well, he may be achieving a degree of happiness for himself, and is that not an achievement? I don't know.
He of course had some of his TikTok and his social media sites closed down for a brief period of time because he was making certain. He was putting up content that was concerning. But anyway, look, he's now a nuisance. I love that word.
Yeah.
I love the word nuisance.
Yeah.
I actually think...
Probably been said about you.
It has many a time.
Yeah.
Judge Alexander Owens has this fabulous vocabulary as well. He does. He's a great way of giving us a headline or a...
He does. He gives it straight. I mean, if only all judges were so articulate and direct.
He couldn't make hide nor hair.
Yeah.
Sweeney wanted to achieve. I love it. Okay, well, Marcus Sweeney, look... Maybe he will make it clear himself on his TikTok what it is he wanted to do in the court.
Yeah.
What was no doubt, he will say, denied to him. And where he plans to go next or what he plans to do next.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about the hot seat in crime world?
Well, you're the boss, aren't you?
I'll think about it. Okay.
Thanks, Nicola. Robbie Lawler was out of control.
This is Double Cross, the murder of Robbie Lawler.
It was going to be an all-out war with him in the middle of it.
A Crime World special investigation podcast based on my new book, Web of Betrayal, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.